So we just got done talking about Microsoft making a massive purchase with Activision Blizzard. But today we had another acquisition, kind of out of left field. This one having to do with Sony, though, and it just happened like an hour or two ago. Sony is buying Bungie. That's right. The developer who created Halo back in the day on the Xbox is now joining PlayStation. And we're going to go over that here today because there's quite a bit about this acquisition, this story that continues to break. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So let's over here. This is PlayStation blog, where they say Bungie is joining PlayStation. This is from Jim Ryan, President and CEO, Sony Interactive Entertainment, saying, today I am happy to announce Bungie will be joining the PlayStation family. First off, I want to be very clear to the community that Bungie will remain an independent and multi-platform studio and publisher. As such, we believe it makes sense for it to sit alongside the PlayStation Studios organization, and we are incredibly excited about the opportunities for synergies and collaborations between these two world-class groups. I've spent a lot of time with Pete Parsons, Jason Jones, and the Bungie management team to develop the right relationships where they will be fully backed and supported by Sony Interactive Entertainment and enabled to do what they do best, build incredible worlds that captivate millions of people. Bungie's world-class expertise in multi-platform development and live game services will help us deliver on our vision of expanding PlayStation to hundreds of millions of gamers. Bungie is a great innovator and has developed incredible proprietary tools that will help PlayStation Studios achieve new heights under Herman Hulst's leadership. So, why in the world is Sony buying Bungie? That's kind of the thing I'm seeing going around right now, because initially you go, oh, well, they're just going to make Destiny an exclusive. Well, Destiny 3 maybe. Destiny 2 is already out there on basically everything for the most part. But Destiny 3, right, that'll just be on PlayStation. Not necessarily. I mean, it seems that Jim Ryan really wanted to drive home the point that things that Bungie is working on right now or even in the future will remain things that Bungie works on, as in they will be an independent publisher and developer alongside of Sony, which once again brings up the idea of, oh, well, why would they buy Bungie? Well, I think there are a few different reasons here. Again, these are kind of my initial reactions to this entire situation. More information continues to be breaking. I'll be covering this tomorrow in Newswave as well as one of the big stories. But the first reason, I believe that Bungie has been looking around to get purchased for a little while now. There were rumors that they had approached even Microsoft about it, and it sounded like they maybe wanted a bit more for their asking price than Microsoft was willing to just start throwing the checkbook at. Now, PlayStation bought them for $3.6 billion. I don't know if it's all cash or if it's split like stock and cash. Those numbers will continue to come out as we go along. But I'll admit, I saw $3.6 billion. I was like, wow, that does feel like more than I would expect for Bungie. I know they have Destiny 2, and that's a very lucrative live service that they have continued to build on. And if you think about it with PlayStation, the second thing, their biggest weakness is something that Bungie can actually solve. Think about what Sony is known for. They have world-class single-player narrative-driven experiences, things like God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn with Forbidden West coming out here pretty soon, and then we have Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. The list goes on there. However, they've had kind of a hard time creating a really good live service game that can continue through generations even. But Bungie has been able to do that basically from the start. They even did something that, I mean, we see other developers who've done live services struggle with, and that is create a sequel to a live service. I mean, Destiny, the original one, very popular. Destiny 2, more popular. It didn't have an issue where, oh, we're going to split the fan base. How is this going to work? I mean, think about what Blizzard was doing with Overwatch 2. They didn't seem to know how to approach that at all. And it seems like Bungie just said, yeah, we're just doing Destiny 2, and it worked. It's very, very popular, very lucrative as well. So I think specifically it's mentioned here in this blog post for a reason, and that is their proprietary tools and experience. The fact that Bungie knows how to make a live service game, sure, they'd be operating independently, kind of off to the side of Sony and PlayStation Studios, but that doesn't mean you couldn't have crossover or have Bungie maybe help out with a live service game that Sony is developing. You can have different support being run on game projects from people at Bungie. Last I checked, it was over 800 developers there. So yeah, you could have some of them maybe work on the next Resistance with Sony, or a SOCOM game, or maybe a big Killzone live service title that just runs the entirety of this generation. That's something that Microsoft has been able to do pretty well, is multiplayer games, and they talk quite a bit about engagement. Like, that's all they really want to say about things like Halo Infinite crossing 20 million, or Forza Horizon 5 with 18 million, or Sea of Thieves with 25 million people basically trying the game out at least once. But Sony most talks about sales numbers, and obviously they get to a point where the game just kind of runs out of people to sell it to that are interested on the PlayStation ecosystem. I mean, God of War still reaches, 20 million copies sold? That's good. But Sony's games are expensive to make, and it's pretty clear that Jim Ryan realizes this and is thinking, okay, if we can have a live service game, or maybe two different live service games running throughout an entire generation, that can help us with just recurring revenue alongside of our big subscription service with Project Spartacus, and that, of course, working to build really good narrative-driven single-player experiences. And I guess at this point, hey, they would be making all of the money that we would see from Destiny 2 or Destiny 3 when it comes to microtransactions and that recurring revenue. So they basically have a turnkey live service game immediately. And I do know that Bungie was also working on another project, I think NetEase invested in that. So I assume then Sony would be at least getting the benefits of what that title ends up doing, or new IP that comes out of that in some way. NetEase, I'm sure, has some sort of stake in that because they invested in it. But still, this is certainly a play for Sony in the long term. They are thinking, okay, throughout this generation into the next generation, can we have something that we can count on being there and making money every single month so that we can focus and invest heavily into these big new IPs, new single player adventures that, yeah, cost upwards of $100 to even $200 million to create and then market. Also, I don't see this as any kind of response to Microsoft buying Activision. There are already some early talks that this deal has been in the works for 5 to 6 months. And like I said, last year, I had been hearing that Bungie was looking around with some people or some companies like Microsoft to see if there was any interest in buying them. So it seems like maybe the stars aligned there for them, and Sony was like, yeah, we'll pay the $3.6 billion to bring you guys in so we can work to resolve a weakness that we recognize we have when it comes to live service games. But let me know what you guys think about this. What a turnaround in the last month or so. We have Crash Bandicoot going to Microsoft, and we have now Bungie, the original developers of Halo on the Xbox, now going to Sony. It's a strange time now in 2022. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.